The moment that doctor walked through those emergency room doors, I knew my perfectly controlled life was about to explode into a million pieces. Damien Cross thought he had everything figured out. Billionaire CEO by 32. Tech empire worth 9 figures. A son he'd raised alone for 6 years after the only woman he ever loved vanished without a trace. But when little Noah broke his arm at school and they rushed to the ER that rainy Thursday afternoon, the universe decided to detonate every lie Damien had been living. Because the doctor treating his son, she was the ghost who'd haunted him for 6 years, and she was staring at Noah like she'd just seen her own child. If you want to see how this impossible reunion tears apart everything they thought they knew, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The rain came down in sheets that Thursday afternoon, the kind of downpour that turns Seattle's streets into rivers and makes windshield wipers completely useless. Damien Cross sat in the back of his Mercedes S-Class, phone pressed to his ear, only half listening to his CFO drone on about quarterly projections. Mr. Cross, the Shanghai deal needs your signature by... His phone buzzed with another call. Pinewood Elementary. Damien's stomach dropped. I have to go. He didn't wait for a response before switching lines. This is Damien Cross. Mr. Cross, this is Principal Morrison. There's been an accident. Noah fell during recess and... Is he okay? Damien was already leaning forward, tapping his driver's shoulder. Stevens, Pinewood Elementary. Now. His arm is injured, possibly broken. The school nurse recommends... I'm on my way. 12 minutes later, Damien burst through the elementary school's front doors, his $2,000 suit soaked through, not giving a damn. A teacher he didn't recognize led him to the nurse's office, where 6-year-old Noah sat on the examination table, cradling his left arm, tear tracks still visible on his flushed cheeks. Dad! Noah's face crumpled the second he saw him. Damien was across the room in 3 strides, carefully pulling his son against his chest. I've got you, buddy. I've got you. It hurts really bad, Noah whimpered into his father's wet jacket. I know, we're going to fix it. Damien pulled back just enough to examine the arm. Already swelling, definitely broken. He looked at the school nurse. I'm taking him to the hospital. Of course. I've prepared his medical files. Send them to my phone. Damien was already scooping Noah up with his good arm. Come on, champ. Let's get you taken care of. The drive to Seattle Grace Hospital took 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours. Noah tried to be brave, but every bump in the road made him wince. Damien kept up a steady stream of conversation, anything to distract him. Remember what we talked about last night, about being strong even when things are scary? Noah nodded, bottom lip trembling. You're doing great, Noah. Better than I would be. You know when I broke my arm at your age, I cried for 2 hours straight? Really? Noah's eyes widened slightly. Oh yeah, your Uncle Marcus still makes fun of me for it. Wouldn't shut up for days. Damien managed a smile. You're already tougher than I was. By the time they reached the ER entrance, Noah had stopped crying, though his face was pale and pinched with pain. Damien carried him through the automatic doors into chaos. The waiting room was packed, every chair occupied, people coughing and bleeding and arguing with the overwhelmed staff. I need someone to look at my son. Now. Damien's voice cut through the noise as he approached the registration desk. The harried-looking woman behind the counter barely glanced up. Sir, you'll need to sign in and... His arm is broken. He's 6 years old and he's been in pain for over half an hour. I'm not waiting. Sir, I understand, but everyone here is waiting, unless it's life-threatening. Damien leaned forward, his voice dropping to something quiet and dangerous. I donate $7 million a year to this hospital. Get a doctor. The woman's eyes widened. She picked up her phone, spoke in rapid, hushed tones, then looked back at him. Someone will be right with you, Mr. Cross. Please, have a seat. I'll stand. He didn't have to wait long. Within 5 minutes, a nurse appeared, clipboard in hand. Noah Cross? That's us. Damien followed her through a set of double doors into the treatment area. The hallway was just as chaotic as the waiting room. Gurneys lined against walls, doctors and nurses rushing past, the sharp smell of antiseptic mixing with something less pleasant. They were led to a small examination room. The nurse took Noah's vitals, blood pressure, temperature, oxygen levels. While asking standard questions, Damien answered mechanically. Name, age, allergies, previous medical history. Noah sat quietly through it all, exhausted from pain and fear. The doctor will be in shortly, the nurse said, giving Noah's good hand a gentle squeeze. You're being very brave, sweetheart. After she left, Damien pulled a chair close to the examination table and took Noah's uninjured hand. How are you holding up? Okay, I guess. Noah's voice was small. Dad? Yeah, buddy. Am I going to need a cast? Probably, but you know what? All your friends are going to want to sign it. You'll be the coolest kid in first grade. Noah managed a weak smile. Can I get a blue one? Any color you want? They sat in silence for a moment, Noah leaning against his father's shoulder. Damien pressed a kiss to the top of his head, breathing in the familiar scent of his son's shampoo mixed with playground dirt. These moments, when Noah needed him, trusted him completely, were both the best and most terrifying parts of fatherhood. Footsteps approached in the hallway. Damien looked up as the door opened, and his entire world stopped. The woman who walked through that door was supposed to be impossible. She was supposed to be gone, vanished, possibly dead for all Damien had been able to find out 6 years ago when she disappeared from his life like smoke. But there she was, Clara Bennett. She'd frozen in the doorway, one hand still on the handle, her face draining of all color. The medical chart she'd been holding slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. For a moment, one crystalline, impossible moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Clara looked different. Older, though she couldn't be more than 29 or 30 now. Her long brown hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore scrubs instead of the waitress uniform he remembered. A white coat over them with a hospital badge clipped to the pocket. Dr. Clara Bennett, it read. Doctor. Clara had become a doctor. Clara? His voice came out rough, disbelieving. She didn't respond. Couldn't seem to. Her eyes had moved from Damien to Noah, and something in her expression made Damien's blood run cold. She was staring at his son like she was seeing a ghost. Noah, oblivious to the tension crackling through the room, spoke up. Hi, I broke my arm. That simple statement seemed to snap Clara back to herself. She blinked, bent to retrieve the fallen chart, and straightened with visible effort. When she spoke, her voice was professionally neutral, but Damien could hear the tremor underneath. Yes, I see that. She moved into the room, but stayed as far from Damien as the small space allowed. Hello, Noah. I'm Dr. Bennett. Can you tell me what happened? I was on the monkey bars and I fell. Noah held up his injured arm carefully. It really hurts. I'm sure it does. Clara pulled on latex gloves with shaking hands. I'm going to need to examine it, okay? I'll be as gentle as I can, but it might hurt a little bit. Can you be brave for me? I'm already being brave, Noah said with 6-year-old dignity. Dad says I'm braver than he was when he broke his arm. Clara's eyes flicked to Damien for just a second before returning to Noah. I'm sure you are. Okay, let me take a look. Damien watched her work, his mind reeling. 6 years. 6 years he'd searched for her, hired private investigators, called every hospital and morgue and police station in 3 states. 6 years he'd believed she was either dead or had chosen to disappear so completely that she might as well be. And here she was, in Seattle, a doctor, treating his son. His son. Clara was examining Noah's arm with professional competence, asking questions in that calm, gentle voice doctors used with children. But Damien could see the way her hands trembled, could see the careful way she avoided looking directly at him, could see the tears she was blinking back. Okay, Noah, it's definitely broken, Clara said, stepping back. We're going to need to get an X-ray to see exactly where the break is, and then we'll put a cast on it. Sound good? Can it be blue? Noah asked immediately. A ghost of a smile crossed Clara's face. Blue is a great choice. That's what I said. Noah looked triumphant. Clara finally looked at Damien directly. The impact of those brown eyes nearly knocked him backward. He'd spent 6 years trying to forget those eyes, failed miserably every single time. Mr. Cross, I'll need to speak with you for a moment, outside. It wasn't a request. Damien looked at Noah. I'll be right outside, okay, champ? You going to be all right for a minute? Noah nodded bravely, though his eyes were uncertain. Damien followed Clara into the hallway, the door clicking shut behind them. She walked several feet away, putting distance between them and the room before turning to face him. Up close, he could see the changes 6 years had wrought, fine lines around her eyes, a hardness in her expression that hadn't been there before. She'd been soft once, all smiles and laughter and hope. That girl was gone. "What are you doing here?" Claire's voice was barely above a whisper, but it shook with emotion. "My son broke his arm. I brought him to the hospital." "Your son?" She said it like the words hurt. How did you? 6 years ago. Damien kept his voice low, aware of the nurses and doctors passing by. "How long have you been in Seattle?" "That's none of your business." "The hell it isn't? You vanished, Clara. One day you were there and the next—" He cut himself off, running a hand through his damp hair. "I looked for you for months, years. I thought you were dead." "Maybe that would have been easier." Claire's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "For both of us." "Don't say that. Don't ever." Damien took a step closer, and she immediately stepped back. He stopped. "Where did you go?" "Away. As far as I could get." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I can't do this right now. I have a patient to treat." "Noah." "Yes. Noah." Something flickered across her face. He looks like me. I know. Everyone says so." Clara laughed, but it came out broken. Yeah, he does." They stood there in the fluorescent-lit hallway, 6 years of silence stretching between them, neither knowing how to bridge the gap. Finally, Clara squared her shoulders. "I'll arrange for Noah's X-ray and casting. Another doctor can—" "No." Damien's voice was firm. "You. I want you to treat him." "That's not a good idea." "I don't care. You're here. You're a doctor. You're treating my son. Damien." "Please." The word came out rougher than he intended. "Please, Clara, just don't disappear again. Not yet." She looked at him for a long moment, conflict clear in her expression. Finally, she nodded once, sharply. "Fine. But we're not doing this here. We're not having whatever conversation you think we need to have. I'm going to treat Noah's arm, and then you're going to leave, and we're going to forget this ever happened." "Like hell we are." "I mean it, Damien. I can't." Her voice cracked. "I can't do this with you. Not after everything." Before he could respond, she turned and walked back into the examination room. Damien stood in the hallway, his hands clenched into fists, trying to process the impossible. Clara was alive. Clara was here. And unless he was very much mistaken, she'd looked at Noah like she knew him, like seeing him had broken something inside her. Why? Damien pushed back into the room to find Clara explaining the X-ray process to Noah, her professional mask firmly back in place. She was good with him, Damien noticed. Patient, kind. She made Noah smile when she joked about the X-ray machine being like a very boring video game. 20 minutes later, they were in radiology. Damien stood behind the protective barrier with Clara while a technician positioned Noah's arm. On the monitor, the break was clearly visible, a clean fracture of the radius, mercifully not displaced. "It's a good break, if there is such a thing," Clara said quietly, speaking to him for the first time since the hallway. "Simple fracture, no surgery needed, 6 weeks in a cast and he'll be fine." "That's good." "Yeah." They lapsed back into silence. Damien studied her profile. The curve of her cheek, the set of her jaw, the way she bit her lower lip when she was concentrating. She'd always done that. Some things apparently didn't change. "How long have you been a doctor?" Clara didn't look at him. "I finished my residency 8 months ago. This is my first attending position." "Emergency medicine?" "Pediatric emergency medicine." Of course. Clara had always loved children. He remembered her talking about it during those stolen hours they'd had together 6 years ago, back when she was waiting tables at that diner and dreaming of a different life. Back when he'd been younger, stupider, certain he could have everything he wanted. Back before he'd lost her. The X-ray completed, they moved to a treatment room for the casting. Noah was getting tired, the pain and stress of the afternoon catching up with him. Clara worked efficiently, preparing the casting materials while chatting with Noah about school, his favorite subjects, what he wanted to be when he grew up. "A scientist," Noah said firmly. "Like Dad. He makes computers do cool stuff." "Does he?" Clara's hands faltered for just a second. That does sound cool. He's really smart. He helps me with my homework and everything. I bet he does. Damien watched the exchange, his chest tight. Noah had no idea at all, what kind of bomb had just gone off in his father's life. To him, this was just another doctor in another hospital. He couldn't see the way Clara's hands shook slightly as she applied the casting material. Couldn't hear the way her breathing hitched when Noah smiled up at her. Couldn't possibly understand why his father felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. What color did we decide on? Clara asked, holding up several options. Blue. Noah was decisive. Blue it is. She worked in silence for a while, carefully wrapping the fiberglass material around Noah's arm, smoothing it into place. Her movements were practiced, confident. Damien found himself mesmerized by her hands, the same hands that had once held his face, traced patterns on his chest, threaded through his hair. Stop it. Stop thinking about that. But he couldn't. 6 years hadn't been enough to forget her. 6 years of throwing himself into work, building cross technologies from a startup into a billion-dollar empire, raising Noah alone, dating women who meant nothing and never would. 6 years of lying to himself that he'd moved on. One look at Clara and every wall he'd built came crashing down. All done, Clara announced, sitting back. There you go, Noah. One brand new blue cast. Noah examined his arm with interest. Cool. Can people sign it? Absolutely. In fact, I'll start. Clara pulled a marker from her pocket and carefully wrote her name on the cast in neat letters. There. First signature. Noah beamed. Then he looked up at her with those earnest 6-year-old eyes. You're really nice. Are you going to be my doctor forever now? Clara's smile wobbled. I work in the emergency room, so I usually only see kids once. But I'm glad I could help you today. Oh. Noah looked disappointed. Okay. But you did great. So brave. Your dad should be proud. He always is, Noah said matter-of-factly. He says I'm the best thing that ever happened to him. Damien saw Clara's eyes go bright with tears. She turned away quickly, busying herself with cleaning up the casting materials. I need to get you discharge papers and care instructions. Wait here. She was gone before Damien could say anything. He helped Noah down from the examination table, carefully avoiding the still wet cast. How does it feel? Weird, but it doesn't hurt as much now. Good. The doctor did a good job, huh? Yeah, I liked her. Noah leaned against his father. Dad, you look funny. Funny how? I don't know. Your face is different. Damien tried to school his expression into something normal. I'm just tired, buddy. It's been a long day. Clara returned with a folder of papers and a prescription for pain medication. She went through the discharge instructions mechanically. Keep the cast dry. Watch for signs of circulation problems. Follow up with orthopedics in a week. Damien nodded along, not really hearing her. He was trying to figure out how to say what needed to be said, how to keep her from vanishing again. Mr. Cross, do you have any questions? He had about 1,000,000 questions, none of which he could ask in front of Noah. Just one. Can we talk? Privately? Claire's expression shuddered. I don't think that's... Please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. She looked at Noah, then back at Damien, conflict written all over her face. Finally, she nodded. There's a family consultation room down the hall, but I only have a few minutes before my next patient. Damien turned to Noah. Hey, champ. I need to talk to the doctor for just a second about boring adult stuff. Can you be a brave guy and wait right here? Don't move, okay? Okay, Dad. Damien followed Clara out of the room and down the corridor to a small, windowless room with a table and a few chairs, the kind of space where doctors delivered bad news to families. Clara closed the door behind them, but didn't sit down. Neither did Damien. 5 minutes, she said. Where have you been? I told you, away. That's not an answer, Clara. I looked everywhere for you. Your apartment was empty. Your phone was disconnected. The diner said you quit without notice. You didn't have any family, no friends I could track down. You just vanished. I needed to. Why? Because she stopped, wrapped her arms around herself again. It was a defensive gesture, one he'd never seen her use before. Because I couldn't stay. Because being near you was destroying me. Because I was poor and you were rich, and we both knew it could never work, no matter what we felt. That's bullshit, and you know it. I didn't care about the money. You cared about your father's money and your inheritance and the life you were supposed to have. Clara's voice rose slightly. I was the waitress you were slumming with, Damien. We both knew how that story ended. No, I never thought of you that way. Never. Your father did. He made that very clear. Damien went still. What did he say to you? It doesn't matter now. It was 6 years ago. We were different people. Clara, what did my father say to you? She looked at him for a long moment, and he saw the exact instant she decided not to answer. I have to get back to work. Did he pay you to leave? The pieces were clicking together in Damien's head. His father had been furious when he'd found out Damien was seeing Clara, had ranted about gold diggers and inappropriate relationships. And then suddenly, Clara had been gone and his father had been satisfied. Did he give you money to disappear? Damien, answer me. Did my father pay you to leave me? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Help me understand why the woman I loved vanished without a word. Why I spent the last 6 years thinking you might be dead. Why I'm standing here right now feeling like I'm losing my mind because you're alive and you're here and you're acting like... He cut himself off, breathing hard. Just tell me the truth. Clara's face crumpled. I can't do this right now. I have patience. I have a life. She stopped abruptly. You have what? She shook her head, tears streaming down her face now. I need you to leave. Please, just take Noah and go and forget you ever saw me. I can't forget you, Clara. I've been trying for 6 years and I can't. You have to. Give me one good reason why. She looked at him, him, and in her eyes he saw pain and regret and something else, something that looked like fear. Because if you don't leave right now, if you keep pushing this, everything is going to fall apart. For both of us. What does that mean? It means go, Damien. Please, just go. She opened the door and walked out before he could stop her. Damien stood in the small room, his hands clenched so tight, his nails dug into his palms. He wanted to follow her, to demand answers, to make her explain what the hell was happening. But Noah was waiting. Damien took a moment to compose himself, then walked back to the examination room. Noah was sitting on the table, swinging his legs, examining his new cast. Ready to go home, buddy? Yeah, Dad, are you okay? You look sad. Damien managed a smile. I'm fine, come on, let's get out of here. He scooped Noah up carefully, mindful of the cast, and headed for the exit. As they passed through the ER, Damien found himself scanning for Clara, but she was nowhere to be seen. Probably hiding, probably hoping he'd just leave and never come back. Not a chance in hell. The rain had let up by the time they got back to the car. Stevens helped Noah into his booster seat while Damien stood on the sidewalk, looking back at the hospital. Somewhere in there, Clara was working, living her life, pretending the last hour hadn't happened. But it had happened, and Damien wasn't the type to leave mysteries unsolved. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in months. Marcus Cross speaking. It's me. I need you to do something for me. His younger brother sighed. Hello to you too, Damien. What do you need? I need you to find out everything you can about Dr. Clara Bennett. She works at Seattle Grace Hospital, pediatric emergency medicine. I want to know where she lives, where she's been for the last 6 years, everything. Okay, that's not creepy at all. Who is she? Someone I used to know? Used to know or used to sleep with? Marcus, I'm just trying to gauge the level of stalking you're asking me to commit here. Is this going to come back on me legally? She's not going to press charges. Just find her, please. Marcus was quiet for a moment. This is about the woman who disappeared, isn't it? The one you never talk about. Yes. Shit. Okay. Give me a few hours. Thank you. Damien ended the call and climbed into the car. Noah was chattering about how he couldn't wait to show his cast to his best friend Tyler, completely oblivious to his father's turmoil. As Stevens pulled away from the hospital, Damien made himself a promise. He'd lost Clara once. He'd spent 6 years in the dark, not knowing if she was alive or dead, hating himself for not fighting harder to find her. He wasn't making that mistake again. Whatever secret she was keeping, whatever had driven her away, whatever made her look at Noah like her heart was breaking, he was going to find out. And this time, he wasn't letting her go. Marcus called back 3 hours later, right as Damien was trying to convince Noah that Yes, he still had to take a bath, even with a cast on his arm. I've got an address, Marcus said without preamble, and you're not going to like the rest of it. Damien stepped out of the bathroom, leaving Noah to play with his waterproof toys while keeping his cast propped on the edge of the tub. What do you mean? Clara Bennett, 29 years old. Medical degree from University of Washington, completed her residency at Children's Hospital. Started at Seattle Grace 8 months ago. Marcus paused. She lives in Ravenna. Small apartment, pays rent on time, keeps to herself mostly. But here's the thing. What? She's got a kid, Damien. A son, 5 years old. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Damien's feet. He grabbed the wall for support. What? Yeah, kid's name is registered with the school district. She's listed as a single mother, no father on any of the paperwork I could access. The timeline... Marcus trailed off, then spoke carefully. The timeline matches up with when she disappeared. Damien's mind was racing, doing math he didn't want to do. 6 years ago, Clara had vanished. Now she had a 5-year-old son, which meant she'd been pregnant when she left, which meant, "Send me the address," Damien said hoarsely. Damien, maybe you should think about this before... Send me the address, Marcus. A heavy sigh. I'm texting it now, but seriously, man, maybe don't show up at her door tonight. Give yourself time to process whatever this is. Noted. Thanks for your help. Damien ended the call and stared at his phone as the text came through. An address in Ravenna, not even 30 minutes from his downtown penthouse. She'd been this close for 8 months and he'd never known. Dad, I'm done! Damien shook himself and went back to help Noah out of the tub, wrapping him in a towel and carefully drying around the cast. His hands moved on autopilot while his mind spun in circles. Clara had a son, 5 years old, the same age Noah would be if... No, that was impossible. Noah was his son. He'd been there since the beginning. He'd held him in the hospital the day he was born, cut the umbilical cord, stayed up all night those first terrifying weeks learning how to be a father. Noah's mother had been Rebecca, his ex-girlfriend. They'd broken up before Rebecca discovered she was pregnant, and by the time Noah was born, she'd made it clear she wanted nothing to do with either of them. Damien had full custody. It was all documented, legal, final. But the timing... Dad, you're squeezing too hard, Noah complained. Damien realized he'd been gripping the towel too tightly. Sorry, buddy. Let's get you into pajamas. He got Noah settled in bed, read him 2 chapters of their current book, and sat with him until he drifted off to sleep. Then Damien went to his home office, pulled out a locked drawer, and retrieved the file he kept there. Noah's birth certificate. Rebecca Hartman listed as mother. Damien Cross listed as father. Born at Seattle Presbyterian Hospital on November 3rd, 6 years ago. Damien stared at the document until the words blurred together. He'd never questioned it. Rebecca had been pregnant, she'd had a baby, the baby was his. It made sense. They'd been together, however briefly. The timeline worked. But Rebecca had been cold about the whole thing, emotionally distant even during the pregnancy. She'd handed Noah over the moment he was born and walked away without looking back. Damien had assumed it was postpartum depression, or simply that motherhood wasn't for her. What if it was something else? What if Rebecca hadn't been the mother at all? No. That was insane. He'd seen her pregnant. He'd been at the hospital for the birth. There were records, documents, blood tests. But he'd also thought Clara was gone forever, and she'd been in Seattle for 8 months. Damien pulled out his laptop and started searching. Rebecca Hartman. He hadn't spoken to her in years. She'd signed away all parental rights when Noah was 6 months old and disappeared from their lives. He'd heard she'd moved to California, but beyond that, nothing. An hour of searching turned up a Facebook profile that hadn't been updated in 3 years. A LinkedIn showing she worked in marketing in San Diego. No mentions of a child, no baby pictures, no evidence she'd ever been a mother at all, which wasn't necessarily suspicious. Plenty of women chose not to broadcast that kind of information online. But combined with everything else, Damien closed his laptop and scrubbed his hands over his face. He was losing his mind, building conspiracy theories out of coincidences and timing. Or was he? His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking into my life, please. I'm asking you as someone who used to matter to you. Just let this go." Clara. Had to be. Damien typed back immediately. "We need to talk, face to face." Three dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, no, then I'll come to you. I have your address. The response was immediate. That's not okay. You can't just show up at my home. Then meet me somewhere. Coffee shop, park, anywhere. One conversation, Clara. That's all I'm asking. A long pause. Damien could picture her on the other end, pacing, trying to figure out how to say no in a way that would make him stop. I have nothing to say to you. I don't believe that. I don't care what you believe. Did you have a baby 6 years ago? He sent it before he could second-guess himself. Watched the screen, heart pounding, waiting for an answer that didn't come. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. Good night, Damien. He tried calling the number. It rang once, then went to a generic voicemail. He called again. Same thing. She'd blocked him. Damien sat in his office until well past midnight, staring at his phone, trying to decide what to do. Every instinct told him to drive to her apartment right now, demand answers, force her to explain what the hell was going on. But he had Noah to think about. Noah, who was sleeping peacefully down the hall, who had no idea his entire world might be built on lies. If there even were lies. Damien still didn't know anything for certain, except that Clara had looked at Noah like she recognized him, like seeing him had broken her heart, and she had a 5-year-old son she'd never mentioned. Damien made a decision. Tomorrow, after he dropped Noah at school, he was going to Clara's apartment. She didn't have to let him in. She didn't have to talk to him. But she couldn't stop him from showing up. He just hoped he was ready for whatever truth was waiting. The next morning, Damien got Noah ready for school with the same routine they'd perfected over 6 years. Breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, clothes. Noah insisted on wearing his favorite dinosaur shirt even though it was getting too small. Backpack check. Homework, lunch, water bottle. Everyone's going to want to sign my cast, Noah announced proudly as Damien helped him into the car. Probably. Remember what we talked about? Keep it dry, don't hit anyone with it, tell your teacher if it starts to hurt. I know, Dad, you told me like 100 times. Just making sure. The drive to Pinewood Elementary took 15 minutes. Damien walked Noah to his classroom, spoke briefly with his teacher about the injury, and watched his son race off to show his friends the cast. So normal. So ordinary. How many of those ordinary moments were based on lies? Damien drove to Ravenna with his stomach in knots. The neighborhood was older, working class, full of small apartment buildings and houses that had seen better days. Clara's address led him to a 3-story building that looked like it had been built in the 70s and hadn't been updated since. He sat in his car for a full 5 minutes, trying to figure out what to say. How did you ask someone if your entire life was a lie? How did you demand answers about secrets you weren't even sure existed? Finally, he got out of the car and climbed the stairs to the second floor. Apartment 2C. There was a small wreath on the door and a welcome mat that said Home Sweet Home in faded letters. Damien knocked. Footsteps inside. A pause. Then Clara's voice, muffled by the door. Go away, Damien. I just want to talk. And I told you I have nothing to say. Please, Clara, 5 minutes, that's all. No. Damien leaned his forehead against the door. I know you have a son, 5 years old. I know the timing matches up with when you left. I know you looked at Noah yesterday like you were seeing someone you knew. He paused. I need you to tell me I'm wrong. I need you to tell me I'm crazy and there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for all of this. Silence. Clara, please. More silence. Then, so quietly he almost didn't hear it, you should have stayed away. The door opened. Clara stood there in jeans and an old sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking exhausted. Behind her, Damien could see a small living room, worn furniture, toys scattered on the floor, children's drawings taped to the walls. You have 60 seconds, she said. Then I'm closing this door and calling the police if you don't leave. Where's your son? At school, where yours should be. I dropped him off already. Damien gestured to the apartment. Can I come in? No? Clara, cool. You want answers? Fine. Yes, I have a son. Yes, he's 5. No, it's none of your business. Are we done? Who's the father? Her jaw tightened. Not you. Then why do you look terrified right now? I'm not terrified. I'm angry. You don't get to show up at my home and demand information about my life. We're not together, Damien. We haven't been for 6 years. You don't have rights to my personal information. I have rights to the truth. The truth? Clara laughed bitterly. You want the truth? The truth is you were a spoiled rich kid slumming with the poor waitress. And when reality hit, you chose your trust fund over me. That's the truth. That's all there is. That's not what happened, and you know it. Then what happened, Damien? Enlighten me. Because from where I was standing, your father showed up at my apartment, told me you were engaged to someone appropriate, and offered me money to disappear. And you never came looking. So you tell me, what really happened? Damien felt like he'd been punched in the gut. I was engaged? Clara faltered. What? You just said I was engaged to someone else. I've never been engaged, Clara. The only woman I ever thought about marrying was you. They stared at each other. Clara's face had gone pale. Your father said... She stopped, pressed her fingers to her temples. He said you were marrying Rebecca Hartman, that it was all arranged, family connections, the right match. He showed me pictures of you two together. Rebecca and I dated for 3 months. It was casual. We broke up before you and I ever met. Damien's mind was racing. When exactly did my father talk to you? A week before I left. He came to my apartment, told me you'd been using me, that you'd never actually... She cut herself off. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me. Clara, what else did he say? She shook her head, tears spilling over. I can't do this. I can't relive this with you standing in my hallway. Please just go. Not until you tell me about your son. He's mine. That's all you need to know. What's his name? Clara's composure cracked. Stop it. Just tell me his name. Why? What difference does it make? Because I think... Damien stopped, the words stuck in his throat. I think there's a chance Noah isn't who I think he is. Clara went completely still. What are you talking about? Rebecca, Noah's mother. She was pregnant 6 years ago, had a baby, gave him to me, and disappeared. I never questioned it. But yesterday, when you looked at Noah, you looked like you were seeing your own child. And now I find out you have a 5-year-old son you've been raising alone, and the timing matches perfectly with when you left, and I... He stopped, breathing hard. I need you to tell me I'm crazy. I need you to tell me there's no connection. Clara had wrapped her arms around herself, trembling. You need to leave. Did you have my baby, Clara? Did you have our baby and someone convinced you to give him up? Stop. Because that's the only thing that makes sense. That's the only explanation for why my father would have lied to you about Rebecca, why he would have paid you to disappear. He found out you were pregnant, and he... Stop! Clara's shout echoed in the hallway. She was crying openly now, her whole body shaking. Please, just stop. You don't understand. You can't understand. Then help me understand. For a long moment, she just stood there, tears streaming down her face. Then, in a voice so broken it nearly killed him. I had twins, Damien. I had twin boys, and I gave one of them away because your father convinced me I couldn't keep them both, that I'd destroy their lives if I tried. So I picked. I chose one and let the other go, and I've lived with that choice every single day for 6 years. The world tilted sideways. Damien grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. What? Twins, Clara whispered. Noah and Eli. Identical twins. Born November 3rd at Seattle Presbyterian Hospital. And I gave Noah to you because your father promised me he'd have a better life, and I kept Eli because I couldn't let them both go, and I've hated myself ever since. Damien couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The implications were crashing over him in waves. Noah had a twin brother. Noah's mother wasn't Rebecca, it was Clara. His father had orchestrated the entire thing. How? The word came out strangled. How did he even... Rebecca was his assistant's daughter. Your father knew her family. When he found out I was pregnant, he came up with a plan. Rebecca would pretend to be pregnant. I'd hide away until the birth, and then we'd each take one baby. You'd never know I was the mother. You'd think Rebecca had given you a son and then walked away. And I'd disappear with Eli and never contact you again. And you agreed to this? Damien couldn't keep the anger out of his voice. You just went along with it? I was 23 years old, pregnant, and terrified, Clara shot back. Your father told me you didn't want me, that you'd deny the babies were yours, that he'd make sure I never saw a penny of support. He said if I fought him, he'd use his money and connections to take both babies away from me in court. He gave me a choice: walk away with nothing or take one son and enough money to finish medical school. What the hell was I supposed to do? You were supposed to tell me. You were supposed to come to me, and you weren't there. You'd already moved on, or at least that's what your father told me. And I believed him because you'd been pulling away for weeks before he showed up. You stopped answering my calls as much. You canceled dates. I thought... Her voice broke. I thought you'd gotten bored with the poor girl and were ready to go back to your real life. I was pulling away because my father was pressuring me about the business. He wanted me to take over Cross Technologies, and he knew I was distracted. But I never stopped. Damien cut himself off, running his hands through his hair. I never stopped loving you, Clara. Not once. Not ever. They stood there in the hallway, 6 years of lies and manipulation crumbling between them. Finally, Clara stepped back. You should meet him, she said quietly. Eli, you should meet your other son. Damien's heart lurched. He's here? At school. Like I said, I'll pick him up this afternoon. You can... She swallowed hard. You can come back at 4, if you want. I want. Clara nodded, then started to close the door. Damien stopped her with a hand on the frame. Why didn't you ever try to contact me? In 6 years, you never once... I tried, Clara said softly. 3 years ago, I tried. I looked you up, saw you'd built this incredible company, that you had Noah, that you seemed happy. And I realized your father was right about one thing. Noah did have a better life with you than I could have given both of them. So I stayed away. That wasn't your choice to make alone. Maybe not, but it's the choice I made. She looked at him with eyes full of regret. I'll see you at 4. This time when she closed the door, Damien let her. He made it back to his car before the shaking started. Twins. He had twins. 2 sons, separated since birth, raised by different parents, neither one knowing the other existed, and his father had orchestrated the whole thing. Damien pulled out his phone and called a number he hadn't used in 2 years. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. This is Richard Cross. Leave a message. Call me back, Damien said coldly. Now, because we need to talk about what you did to Clara 6 years ago. What you did to me. What you did to my sons. He ended the call and sat in his car, trying to process everything. The father he'd respected, looked up to, tried so hard to please. That man had lied to him, had manipulated Clara, had separated newborn twins and built an elaborate scheme to make sure Damien never knew the truth. Why? Because Clara wasn't appropriate? Because she didn't come from money? Because his father cared more about appearances and social status than his own grandchildren? Damien's phone rang. He answered without looking at the caller ID. Start talking, he said. Well, hello to you too, son. Richard Cross's voice was as calm and controlled as ever. I got your message. I assume we're discussing ancient history? Ancient history. You separated my children. You lied to me for 6 years. You paid off the mother of my children and convinced her I didn't want her. I did what was necessary to protect your future. My future! My future! Damien was shouting now. You destroyed my family. I saved you from making a catastrophic mistake. That girl was... Don't you dare call her that girl like she was nothing. Her name is Clara, and she was carrying my children, and you drove her away. Richard sighed. Damien, you were 26 years old and infatuated with a waitress. You would have thrown away everything, your education, your inheritance, the company, for what? A pretty face? I did you a favor. A favor? Damien laughed bitterly. You split up my sons. You made Clara think I didn't want her. You fabricated an entire story about Rebecca being pregnant. How is any of that a favor? You got to be a father without the complications of an unsuitable mother. You got to raise your heir without the embarrassment of having to explain where he came from. And that girl got enough money to make something of herself. Everyone won. Everyone won. Clara spent 6 years raising our son alone, believing I'd abandoned her. I spent 6 years raising Noah alone, not knowing he had a brother. The boys spent 6 years separated from each other. Where's the win in any of that? They're alive, healthy, and well cared for. That's more than many children can say. Damien closed his eyes, trying to control his rage. Stay away from my family. If you come near Clara, near either of my sons, I will destroy you. Do you understand me? Damien, you're being emotional. In time, you'll see. I mean it, Dad. Stay away, or I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. Every business partner, every board member, every society friend you've ever had. I'll burn your reputation to the ground. He ended the call before his father could respond. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Damien tried to work, gave up, paced his penthouse, tried to work again. He picked up Noah from school and took him to get ice cream, watching his son laugh and chatter about his day, trying to imagine that there was another little boy exactly like him somewhere across town. Eli, Clara's son, his son. How was he supposed to tell Noah he had a twin brother? How did you explain something like this to a 6-year-old? At 3:30, Damien called his assistant and cleared his schedule for the rest of the week. Then he drove back to Ravenna with Noah in the back seat, still chattering about his day. Dad, where are we going? To visit someone, Damien said, his mouth dry. Who? A friend. Someone I want you to meet. He parked outside Clara's building and sat for a moment, trying to steady his breathing. This was it, the moment everything changed. Again. Come on, buddy. Let's go. They climbed the stairs to the second floor. Damien knocked on apartment 2C, Noah bouncing impatiently beside him. Clara opened the door. She'd changed into a nicer shirt, pulled her hair back, put on a little makeup like she was preparing for something important. Behind her, Damien could see another little boy sitting on the couch. A little boy who looked exactly like Noah. Noah saw him at the same moment. His eyes went wide. Dad, why is there another me? Eli had spotted Noah too. He stood up slowly, staring. Why does he look like me? Noah asked, his voice climbing higher. Dad, why? It's okay, buddy. Come inside. We need to talk about something important. Damien met Clara's eyes over Noah's head. She looked terrified. He probably didn't look much better. Together they stepped into the apartment where both their sons stood frozen, staring at each other like they were seeing a mirror come to life. This was going to change everything. The silence in Clara's small living room felt like it could shatter glass. Both boys stood frozen, staring at each other with identical expressions of confusion and wonder. Noah's mouth had fallen open. Eli's hands were clenched at his sides. Mom? Eli's voice was small, uncertain. Why does that boy look exactly like me? Clara knelt down beside him, her hands shaking as she placed them on his shoulders. Sweetheart, remember how we talked about how sometimes people have questions that are hard to answer? This isn't a hard question, Noah interrupted, his voice rising. This is a weird question. Dad, what's happening? Damien crouched down to Noah's eye level, trying to figure out how to explain something he barely understood himself. Okay, so this is going to sound strange, but I need you to listen carefully, all right? Is he my clone? Noah asked, still staring at Eli. Like in Star Wars? No, not a clone. He's... Damien glanced at Clara, who looked like she might throw up. He's your brother. I don't have a brother. You do. You have a twin brother. This is Eli. Noah's face scrunched up in confusion. But twins are born together, at the same time, from the same mom. That's right. But my mom isn't here. She left when I was a baby. You told me that. Damien felt his chest tighten. I was wrong about some things, Noah. Your mom didn't leave. She's... He looked at Clara again, who had tears streaming down her face. She's right here. Dr. Bennett from the hospital. She's your mom, too. Noah looked at Clara, then at Eli, then back at Damien. His young face was struggling to process information that didn't fit with everything he'd been told for 6 years. That doesn't make sense. I know it doesn't, but it's true. Then why wasn't she with us? Why did she have Eli and not me? It was the question Damien had been dreading. How did you explain to a 6-year-old that he'd been separated from his twin because of lies and manipulation? How did you tell him that the adults who were supposed to protect him had failed spectacularly? Clara spoke up, her voice thick with tears. Because I made a mistake, Noah. The biggest mistake of my life. I was young and scared, and I let someone convince me that splitting you and your brother apart was the right thing to do. And I've regretted it every single day since. You gave me away? Noah's voice cracked. You didn't want me? No, sweetheart. It wasn't like that. I wanted both of you so much, but I was told, I believed, that I couldn't give you both a good life. That your dad could give you things I couldn't, A nice home, good schools, everything you needed. I thought I was doing what was best for you. But you kept him. Noah pointed at Eli. You kept my brother, but you didn't keep me. Clara's face crumpled. I had to choose. They made me choose, and I picked wrong. I should have fought harder. I should have never let you go. Noah turned to Damien, his eyes bright with tears and anger. Did you know? Did you know about him? Nobody. I found out yesterday. When we went to the hospital and I saw Dr. Bennett, your mom, I started to figure it out. But I didn't know for sure until this morning. So you lied to me too. You said my mom left. You said she didn't want to be a mom. I thought that was true. I was lied to as well. By my father. Your grandfather. He told me a different woman was your mother. He made up a whole story to keep me from knowing the truth. Noah shook his head, tears spilling over. This is stupid. This is all stupid. I want to go home. Noah. I want to go home, Noah shouted, and then he was running for the door. Damien caught him before he could reach it, pulling him into a hug even as Noah struggled against him. I know you're angry. I know this is scary and confusing and you don't understand, but running away won't fix it. Let me go. I don't want to be here. I'm not letting you go anywhere, Noah. I'm right here. I'm not leaving you. Noah fought for another minute before collapsing against his father's chest, sobbing. Damien held him tight, looking over his head at Clara and Eli. Clara was crying openly now, one hand pressed to her mouth. Eli had moved closer to her, his small body pressed against her side, looking frightened. Is he mad at me? Eli asked quietly. He's not mad at you, baby, Clara whispered, stroking his hair. He's just confused and hurt, just like you are. I'm not confused, Eli said. I always knew I had a brother. You told me. Damien's head snapped up. What? Clara wouldn't meet his eyes. I told Eli about Noah when he was 4. I showed him pictures. I couldn't let him grow up not knowing he had a twin somewhere. You showed him pictures of my son? Our son. And yes, I couldn't lie to him about it. He deserved to know. But I didn't, Noah said bitterly, pulling away from Damien. I didn't deserve to know I had a brother or a mom or anything. That's not fair, Noah, Damien said gently. I didn't know. If I'd known, I would have told you. I would have done everything differently. Noah wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, his cast making the movement awkward. He looked at Eli again, this time with more curiosity than anger. You knew about me. Eli nodded. Mom said you lived with our dad and you were really smart and good at school. She said you looked just like me. She was right about that. Noah took a tentative step closer. Do you like dinosaurs? Yeah, my favorite is the Triceratops. Mine too. Noah's face brightened slightly. Do you have the blue one with the moving head? No, but I have the green one that roars. That's cool. I have the blue one at home. Maybe you could come see it sometime. Just like that, the tension between the boys cracked. They were 6 years old. 6 years old and identical, and apparently both obsessed with dinosaurs. The adult complications didn't matter as much in the face of finding someone exactly like them. Damien and Clara exchanged glances. She looked exhausted, wrung out from emotion. He probably looked the same. Can I show him my room? Eli asked Clara. Yes. Okay. But stay where I can see you. The boys ran off to Eli's bedroom, and suddenly Damien and Clara were alone in the living room. The silence felt heavy. I'm sorry, Clara said finally. I'm so sorry. I should have tried harder to find you. I should have told you the truth years ago. My father convinced you I didn't want you. That's not your fault. But I believed him. I should have known better. I should have trusted what we had. We were kids, Clara. Barely in our 20s. He was a master manipulator with unlimited resources. You did the best you could. I gave away my son. Her voice broke on the words. I gave away our son because I was scared and broke and stupid. That's not doing the best I could. That's failing in the worst possible way. Damien moved closer but didn't touch her. He wasn't sure he had the right. You finished medical school. You became a doctor. You've given Eli a good life from what I can see. A good life in a cramped apartment with secondhand furniture and a mother who cries every year on their birthday because she's only celebrating with half her children. Clara laughed bitterly. Yeah, great life. He seems happy, adjusted. You did that. And Noah? Is he happy? Most of the time. He has nightmares sometimes, asks about his mother occasionally. I've always told him she loved him, but couldn't stay. I thought I was being kind. Turns out I was just perpetuating another lie. They could hear the boys talking in the other room, voices rising in excitement over some shared discovery. At least something good was coming from this disaster. What happens now? Clara asked. Do we just split custody? Trade weekends? How does this even work? I don't know. I've never had to co-parent before. Neither have I. I've just been solo parenting for 6 years. Well, you're not solo anymore. Like it or not, we're in this together now. Clara looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since he'd arrived. I don't hate you, Damien. I want you to know that. I was angry for a long time, but I never hated you. I spent 6 years missing you, wondering what happened, trying to convince myself to move on and failing every single time. You could have had anyone. Billionaire tech genius, handsome, successful. I'm sure women were lining up. I didn't want anyone else. I wanted the girl who made me laugh, who called me on my bullshit, who made me want to be better than I was. I wanted you. Clara's eyes filled with fresh tears. Please don't do this. Do what? Make me believe we could have worked, that I didn't ruin everything by leaving. You didn't leave, Clara. You were driven away. There's a difference. Before she could respond, both boys came running back into the living room. Mom, can Noah stay for dinner? Eli asked. Please, we're building a city with my blocks and we're not done yet. Clara looked at Damien, uncertainty written across her face. He could see the question in her eyes. Was this moving too fast? Should they slow down, give everyone time to adjust? But Noah was looking up at him with the first genuine smile he'd had since this whole mess started, and Damien couldn't bring himself to disappoint him. If it's okay with your mom, it's okay with me, Damien said. Clara nodded slowly. Okay, yes, dinner. I'll make something. The next 2 hours were surreal. Clara cooked spaghetti and meatballs while Damien sat at her small kitchen table, watching the boys play in the living room. They looked like mirror images, right down to the way they concentrated when building with blocks, tongues sticking out slightly. This is bizarre, Clara said quietly, stirring the sauce. Having you in my kitchen, both boys in the same room. It's like an alternate universe. Tell me about it. This morning I woke up thinking I had one son and a dead ex who'd abandoned us. Now I have twins, and their mother is standing 3 feet away making dinner. I'm not a very good cook, by the way. Fair warning. Neither am I. Noah and I live on takeout and frozen pizza most nights. Eli, too. I work long shifts at the hospital. Cooking elaborate meals doesn't really fit the schedule. They fell into silence again, but it was more comfortable this time. Domestic, almost. Like they were a normal separated couple coordinating about their kids, not two people whose lives had been blown apart by secrets and lies. Can I ask you something? Clara said. Yeah. What was she like? Rebecca, the woman who pretended to be pregnant with Noah. Damien thought back, trying to remember details he'd long since dismissed as unimportant. Cold, distant. We dated for a few months before you and I met, but it never went anywhere. She was beautiful but empty, you know? Like having a conversation with a mannequin. When she showed up claiming to be pregnant, I was shocked. We'd always been careful. But the timeline worked out, and she seemed certain, so I believed her. Did you love her? No, not even a little. Then why, because she was carrying what I thought was my child. I wasn't going to abandon my responsibilities just because the relationship hadn't worked out. Clara turned to look at him. You really didn't know, did you, that it was all fake? I swear to you, Clara, I had no idea. My father kept me completely in the dark. Rebecca showed up with ultrasound pictures, probably doctored or from someone else. She wore maternity clothes. She went to doctor's appointments and came back with updates. Then when it was time, she checked into the hospital, and I met her there. I was in the waiting room when they told me I had a son. Damien's jaw clenched. I never questioned it, never thought to verify with actual medical records. I just trusted that the baby they handed me was mine. He is yours. He's ours. But I didn't know that. For 6 years I've been telling Noah his mother didn't want him, and all this time you were across town raising his brother, probably telling Eli the same thing about me. No, Clara said quickly. No, I never told Eli you didn't want him. I told him you didn't know about him, that his grandfather had made it impossible for us to be together. I didn't want him growing up thinking his father had abandoned him. But you let him think I chose Noah over him. Claire's face crumpled. What else was I supposed to say? The truth was too complicated for a 4-year-old to understand. I tried to simplify it, and maybe I got it wrong, but I was doing the best I could. I know. I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just trying to understand how we got here. We got here because your father is a controlling bastard who cared more about appearances than his own grandchildren's happiness. Yeah, that about sums it up. Dinner was chaotic. Both boys talked over each other, comparing everything from favorite colors to least favorite vegetables. They discovered they both hated broccoli, but loved carrots. Both preferred chocolate ice cream. Both had the same bedtime and the same teacher name from preschool, though they'd attended different schools. It's like you're the same person split in half, Clara murmured, watching them with wonder. Identical twins usually are, Damien said. I've read about it. They share almost everything genetically. Even when raised apart, they end up with similar preferences, similar mannerisms. It's not genetics doing this. It's them. They fit together. She was right. Despite being strangers 2 hours ago, Noah and Eli had fallen into an easy rhythm. They finished each other's sentences. They laughed at the same things. When one reached for the salt, the other automatically moved it closer. After dinner, Damien checked his watch. 7:30. Noah's normal bedtime was 8. We should probably head out soon, he said reluctantly. No, both boys shouted in unison. Can't Eli come home with us? Noah asked. Please, Dad, just for tonight? That's not... Damien looked at Clara. That's something we'd need to discuss with your mom. Eli was already pulling on Clara's sleeve. Can I, Mom? Please? I want to see Noah's dinosaurs and his room and his house, please, please, please. Clara looked overwhelmed. Eli, it's a school night. You have class tomorrow. So does Noah. We can go to school together. You go to different schools, baby. Then I'll just go to his school tomorrow. Please, Mom, I promise I'll be good. Damien could see Clara wavering. She wanted to say yes, wanted to give Eli this connection with his brother, but she was terrified of letting him go, of letting him out of her sight after 6 years of it being just the two of them. What if we all went back to my place? Damien suggested. You and Eli could stay over. The boys could have tonight together, and tomorrow we could figure out logistics for school and everything else. I can't just leave my apartment overnight. I have work tomorrow, and call in. Tell them it's a family emergency, which it is. I don't have clothes or... I have a guest room with its own bathroom. We can figure out clothes. Please, Clara, let's give them tonight. She looked at Eli's hopeful face, then at Noah's, then back at Damien. This is insane. Yeah, it really is. If I say yes, you have to promise me something. What? Promise me we're going to sit down after they fall asleep and actually talk about this, about what happens next, about custody and schools and how we're going to explain this to people. All of it. I promise. Okay. Clara took a deep breath. Okay. Let me grab some things for Eli and call the hospital. 20 minutes later, they were all piled into Damien's Mercedes, both boys in the back seat still chattering away, Clara in the front looking like she might hyperventilate at any moment. Your car smells like rich people, she muttered. Damien laughed despite everything. What do rich people smell like? Leather and expensive cologne and regret. That's oddly specific. I've had 6 years to imagine what your life turned into. Apparently I was pretty accurate. The drive to Damien's downtown penthouse took 30 minutes. Clara got quieter as the buildings got taller and more expensive. By the time they pulled into the underground parking garage of one of Seattle's most exclusive residential towers, she looked genuinely pale. You live here, she said flatly. Yeah. In this building that probably costs more per month than I make in a year. Clara, no, it's fine. It's great. I'm sure Noah has had a wonderful life here with his view of the city and his private elevator and whatever else comes with being the son of a billionaire. Are you angry at me for having money? I'm angry at myself for being poor. There's a difference. They rode the elevator to the top floor in silence. The boys didn't notice the tension. They were too busy pressing their faces to the glass elevator walls, watching the city lights rise below them. Damien's penthouse was exactly what Clara had probably imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, modern furniture that looked expensive because it was, a kitchen with appliances that cost more than most people's cars, art on the walls that was probably original. Noah led Eli on an immediate tour, showing him his bedroom, which was bigger than Clara's entire living room, and his playroom, which had enough toys for 10 children, and the media room, which had a screen the size of a movie theater. Clara stood in the middle of the living room looking shell-shocked. "I gave him up for this," she said quietly. "I gave up my son so he could live in a penthouse and have more toys than he could ever play with and go to the best schools money can buy." "Clara, I'm not fishing for sympathy. I'm just processing. 6 years I've been telling myself I made the right choice, that Noah was better off with you, and I was right. Look at this place, Damien. Look at what you've given him. I could never have afforded anything like this." "Money isn't everything," says the billionaire, says the guy who would trade all of it to have had these 6 years with both my sons, to have had you in my life, to have not missed half of their childhood because my father thought social status was more important than family. Clara's eyes filled with tears again. "I've cried more in the last 24 hours than I have in years." "Same. This is such a mess." "Yeah." They stood there in awkward silence until both boys came running back, demanding snacks and drinks and wanting to watch a movie together. Damien set them up in the media room with popcorn and juice boxes, then joined Clara in the kitchen. She was standing at the window, staring out at the city lights. "You promised we'd talk," she said without turning around. "I did. So let's talk. What happens now? Do we tell people the truth? Do we keep it secret? Do we just pretend this is a normal custody arrangement?" "I think we tell the truth. Or at least a version of it. We were together 6 years ago. You got pregnant with twins, circumstances separated us, and now we're figuring out how to co-parent. People are going to have questions. Lots of questions. Let them ask. We don't owe anyone explanations. What about your father? He's not going to just accept this quietly. My father can rot in hell for all I care. I meant what I said. He's never seen the boys again. Not after what he did." Clara turned to face him. "He's still their grandfather. He gave up that right when he separated them at birth. When he lied to both of us. When he manipulated a scared 23-year-old into giving up her baby." Damien's voice was hard. "He doesn't get to be grandfather. He doesn't get to be anything. What if he fights you? What if he tries to claim some kind of grandparent's rights? Let him try. I'll destroy him in court. I have more money than he does now, more connections, more power. If he wants a war, he'll lose. I don't want the boys caught in the middle of that." "They won't be. I'll make sure of it." Clara wrapped her arms around herself. "I'm scared, Damien. I'm terrified that I'm going to lose Eli the same way I lost Noah, that you're going to realize I'm not good enough to be their mother and you're going to take him away." "That's not going to happen." "How do you know?" "Because I'm not my father. Because I know what it's like to be lied to and manipulated, and I would never do that to you. Or to them." He moved closer, close enough to touch if he wanted to. "You're their mother, Clara, both of them. Nothing is going to change that." She looked up at him, searching his face for something. "Do you hate me? For giving Noah to you? For keeping Eli from you?" "No, I could never hate you." "You should. I deserve it." "What you deserve is compassion. You were put in an impossible situation by someone who should have protected you. You made the best choice you could with the information you had. That's not something to hate. That's something to forgive." "I don't know if I can forgive myself." "Then let me forgive you. Let the boys forgive you. And maybe eventually you'll be able to forgive yourself too." Before Clara could respond, Noah appeared in the doorway. "Dad?" Eli fell asleep on the couch. "Should we wake him up?" Damien checked his watch. Almost 9. Past both boys' bedtimes. "No, let him sleep. I'll carry him to the guest room." He found Eli curled up on the sectional, one hand tucked under his cheek, looking exactly like Noah did when he slept. Damien carefully scooped him up, startled by how light he was, how small. This was his son. His son he'd never held before, never rocked to sleep, never comforted after a nightmare. 6 years. He'd missed 6 years of this. Clara led the way to the guest room, pulling back the covers so Damien could lay Eli down. The little boy stirred but didn't wake, just mumbled something about dinosaurs and settled deeper into the pillow. "He looks so peaceful," Clara whispered. "They both do when they sleep. All the chaos just melts away." They stood there for a moment, watching Eli sleep, before Clara gently ushered Damien out and closed the door part way. Noah was already in his own room, changed into pajamas and climbing into bed. "Is Eli really staying all night?" "He really is," Damien confirmed, tucking the covers around him. "And he's really my brother, my twin. He really is." "That's so cool," Noah yawned. "Dad? Yeah, buddy? I'm glad we found him, even though I'm still mad about the lying and stuff." "Me too, on both counts. Do you think things will be different now?" Damien thought about how to answer that. Everything was already different. Their family had doubled in size overnight. The woman he'd never stopped loving was sleeping down the hall. His father had been exposed as a monster. Nothing would ever be the same again. "Yeah," he said finally. "I think things are going to be very different. But maybe different can be good." "Maybe," Noah agreed sleepily. "Night, Dad." "Night, champ." Damien found Clara in the living room, curled up in one of his armchairs, looking small and exhausted. "Noah's asleep," he reported. "So is Eli. Do you want something to drink? Coffee? Wine? Water?" "Wine sounds good. It's been that kind of day." Damien poured them each a glass of red and sat on the couch across from her. They sipped in silence for a while, processing. "What are you thinking?" Damien asked finally. "I'm thinking that 24 hours ago, my biggest problem was covering an extra shift in the ER. Now I'm sitting in a penthouse drinking wine with the father of my children, trying to figure out how to blend two families that should never have been separated in the first place. When you put it that way, it sounds insane. It is insane, all of it. But here we are." "Here we are," Damien echoed. Clara set down her wine glass. "I need to know something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay. What do you want from this? From me? Are you looking to just co-parent politely and stay out of each other's way, or are you hoping for something else?" Damien met her eyes. "What do you think I want?" "I don't know. That's why I'm asking." "I want my family back, Clara. All of it. Both boys under one roof. You and me figuring out how to make this work. I want what we should have had 6 years ago before my father destroyed it." "You mean you want us to be together, as a couple?" "Eventually, yeah. If that's something you could want too." Clara laughed, but it sounded broken. "Damien, we barely know each other anymore. We're different people than we were 6 years ago. So we get to know each other again. We take it slow. We figure it out as we go. And if it doesn't work, if we try and fail, then we fail. But at least we'll have tried. At least we'll know we gave it a real shot this time instead of letting other people make our choices for us." Clara stood up and walked to the window again, her silhouette outlined against the city lights. "I'm not the same girl you knew, Damien. That girl was soft and hopeful and believed in fairy tales. I'm harder now, more cynical. I've had to be to survive. I'm not the same either. I've spent 6 years building walls to keep people out, being untrusting, protecting myself and Noah from getting hurt again. Then maybe we're both too damaged for this to work. Or maybe we're exactly damaged enough to understand each other." She turned to look at him, and in her eyes he saw the same conflict he felt. Fear and hope and longing all tangled together. "I can't promise you anything," she said quietly. "I can't promise I won't panic and run. I can't promise I won't mess this up the way I've messed up everything else. I'm not asking for promises. I'm just asking for a chance." "A chance at what? At playing house? At pretending we're a normal family when we're anything but?" "A chance at being happy. At giving our sons the family they deserve. At maybe finding our way back to what we lost." Clara closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I want that so much it terrifies me." Damien stood and crossed to her, stopping just close enough that he could feel her warmth, but still giving her space to move away if she wanted. "Then be terrified. But be terrified with me, not alone." She looked up at him, and for a moment he thought she might kiss him, thought she might close the distance between them and let herself fall. Instead, she stepped back. "Not yet," she whispered. "I need time. We need time. This is all too fast and too much, and I can't jump into something when I'm still trying to keep my head above water." Damien nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. Okay, we'll take it slow. Thank you. They stood there in awkward silence until Clara yawned despite herself. You should sleep, Damien said. The guest room has everything you need, fresh towels in the bathroom, extra toiletries in the cabinet. What about tomorrow? School and work and all the logistics? We'll figure it out in the morning. For tonight, let's just sleep. Clara nodded and started toward the guest room, then paused. Damien? Yeah. Thank you for not hating me, for understanding, for giving me another chance even though I don't deserve it. You deserve it more than you know. She gave him a small, sad smile and disappeared down the hallway. Damien stood in his living room for a long time after, staring out at the city, trying to process everything that had happened in the span of 2 days. His sons were both asleep under his roof for the first time in their lives. The woman he'd never stopped loving was sleeping down the hall. His father had been exposed as a liar and manipulator. And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, Damien had to figure out how to build a family from broken pieces. He just hoped he was strong enough to pull it off. Morning came too early and with far too much noise. Damien woke to the sound of children laughing, not one child, but two, and for a disoriented moment couldn't remember why there were 2 sets of feet running down his hallway. Then everything from the previous 2 days came crashing back. He found both boys in the kitchen, already awake, and apparently attempting to make breakfast. Cereal covered the counter. Milk had been spilled and hastily wiped up with what looked like an entire roll of paper towels. Noah was standing on a chair trying to reach the cabinet where Damien kept the bowls, while Eli held the cereal box like he was waiting for instructions. Morning, Dad, Noah said cheerfully. We're making breakfast. I can see that. Damien surveyed the damage with resignation. Where's your mom, Eli? Still sleeping. We tried to be quiet, but... Eli gestured at the mess. It got kind of loud. Yeah, I noticed. Okay, get down from there, Noah, before you fall and break your other arm. I'll get the bowls. He set the boys up at the kitchen island with cereal and juice, then started cleaning up the mess they'd made. He was wiping down the counter when Clara emerged from the guest room, looking rumpled and half asleep. She'd slept in her clothes from yesterday, her hair was a mess, and she had pillow creases on her face. Damien thought she'd never looked more beautiful. Coffee, she mumbled. Please tell me you have coffee. Cabinet above the espresso machine. Cups are to the left. Clara made herself a cup with the efficiency of someone who lived on caffeine, then leaned against the counter and watched the boys eat. They're already best friends. Seems like it. They were making breakfast when I got up. Making is a generous term for what happened to your kitchen. Yeah, well, at least they're getting along. Clara sipped her coffee in silence for a moment. I called the hospital last night after you went to bed. Told them I needed a few days for a family emergency. They weren't happy about the short notice, but they approved it. Good. We're going to need time to figure this out. Figure what out exactly? Because I'm still not entirely sure what we're doing here. Damien glanced at the boys to make sure they were absorbed in their breakfast, then lowered his voice. We're figuring out how to be a family, how to co-parent, how to blend their lives without traumatizing them more than they already have been. That's a tall order for a few days. Then we'll take more time. I'll clear my schedule. You've already got time off. We make this the priority. And your company? You can just walk away from running a billion-dollar tech empire? I have good people. They'll manage. My sons are more important than quarterly earnings. Clara studied him over the rim of her coffee cup. You've changed. So have you. Not for the better, probably. I disagree. You're stronger now, more sure of yourself. The Clara I knew 6 years ago wouldn't have made it through medical school while raising a child alone. The Clara you knew 6 years ago wouldn't have had to. Before Damien could respond, both boys finished their cereal and started clamoring for attention. They wanted to play video games together. They wanted to show each other their favorite toys. They wanted to know if they could stay home from school today because separating now seemed impossible. You both have school, Clara said firmly. Education is important. But we just found each other, Noah protested. We should get to spend time together. You'll have plenty of time, but today you both go to your regular schools, and then this afternoon we'll figure out how to see each other again. That's not fair, Eli said. We've been apart for 6 years. We should get to be together now. Clara looked at Damien helplessly. He could see her wavering, wanting to give in because the guilt of separating them in the first place was eating her alive. "How about this?" Damien said. "You both go to school today like your mom said. But this afternoon, I'll pick you both up and we'll go do something fun together. All four of us. Deal?" The boys looked at each other, seemed to communicate something telepathically, then nodded. "Deal," they said in unison. Getting both boys ready for school turned into a logistical puzzle. Eli needed to go back to Clara's apartment for his school clothes and backpack. Noah needed to brush his teeth and find his homework. Both of them kept getting distracted by each other and had to be redirected multiple times. Finally, an hour later than Damien usually left, they managed to get everyone out the door. Clara took Eli back to Ravenna to change and then to his school. Damien dropped Noah off at Pinewood, watching his son run toward the building with more energy than he'd had in months. "Your dad's picking us both up later," Noah shouted to his friend Tyler as he passed. "Him and my mom, and my brother." Damien drove back to his penthouse and tried to work, but concentration was impossible. His mind kept circling back to the same questions. How were they going to make this work? How did you blend two separate households when the children involved were twins who'd been separated since birth? How did you co-parent with someone you still had feelings for, but who needed space and time? His phone rang. "Marcus, please tell me you haven't done anything illegal yet," his brother said by way of greeting. "Good morning to you too. Damien, I'm serious. I've been up all night thinking about the situation you described, and there are about 100 ways this could go sideways legally. You need to talk to a lawyer before—" "I don't need a lawyer. I need to figure out how to be a father to both my sons." "You need both. Clara could decide she wants full custody of Noah since she's his biological mother. Your father could try to cause problems. There are custody issues, legitimacy questions, the fact that your son's birth certificate lists a different mother. I know all that, Marcus. I'm aware of the complications." "Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're making emotional decisions without thinking through the legal ramifications." "Maybe I am. Maybe for once in my life, I'm prioritizing what's right over what's legally protected." Marcus sighed. "Just promise me you'll at least consult with someone. Get ahead of this before it becomes a disaster." "Fine. I'll call someone. Happy?" "Ecstatic." "How are the kids handling it?" "Better than the adults. They're 6. They think having a twin brother is the coolest thing ever." "And Clara?" Damien paused. "Scared. Guilty. Trying to hold it together for Eli's sake." "And you?" "Same. Minus the guilt. Plus a lot of anger at our father. Speaking of which, he's been calling me. Wants to know what you meant by your message yesterday. Tell him to stay away from my family or I'll destroy him." "Already did. He laughed." "Then he's an idiot. I meant every word." "I know you did. That's what worries me." They talked for a few more minutes before Damien ended the call and reluctantly dialed his attorney. The conversation was exactly as complicated as Marcus had predicted. Yes, there were issues with Noah's birth certificate. Yes, Clara could theoretically fight for custody. Yes, Richard Cross could cause problems if he wanted to. "But here's the thing," Damien's attorney said. "If both you and Ms. Bennett are in agreement about how to proceed, if you're willing to work together instead of fighting each other, most of these issues become manageable. It's only if one of you decides to make this adversarial that things get ugly. We're not going to fight each other." "Good. Then my advice is this. Sit down together and work out a custody arrangement you both can live with. Get it in writing, make it official through the courts, amend Noah's birth certificate to reflect the correct parentage, and for the love of all that's holy, keep your father out of it. Trust me, he's already out." Damien spent the rest of the morning making arrangements. He called Noah's school and explained vaguely that there had been a family development and Noah had recently been reunited with his twin brother. He called Eli's school and introduced himself as Eli's father. Both schools were confused but accommodating. At 2:30, he drove to Pinewood Elementary to pick up Noah. His son came running out with his cast covered in signatures and stickers, talking a mile a minute about his day. Everyone wanted to know about Eli. "I told them we're twins, but we didn't know about each other until this week. Tyler thinks that's the coolest thing he's ever heard. Can Eli come to my school? Can we be in the same class?" "We'll have to talk about that with your mom. Come on, we need to go get your brother." They drove to Eli's school across town. Clara was already waiting outside, Eli bouncing excitedly beside her. The moment the boys saw each other, They both started talking at once, comparing their days, showing off things they'd made in class. "This is going to be our life now, isn't it?" Clara said, watching them. "Constant chaos and noise and confusion." "Probably," Damien agreed. "You okay with that?" "Do I have a choice?" "There's always a choice." Clara looked at him. "Then I choose this, whatever this turns out to be, because watching them together," her voice caught, "I can't separate them again. I won't." "Good. Neither will I." They took both boys to a park near the waterfront, somewhere neutral that didn't belong to either of their separate lives. The boys ran off immediately to the playground, leaving Damien and Clara to sit on a bench and watch. "We need to talk about practical things," Clara said. "Schools, living arrangements, how we're going to handle this long term." "I know. I can't afford to move into your building. I can barely afford my current apartment on my salary. So don't. Stay where you are, or," Damien hesitated, "or move into the penthouse. There's plenty of room. The boys could share a room or have their own rooms, whatever they prefer. You'd have your own space." Clara turned to stare at him. "You're asking me to move in with you. I'm offering you an option. You don't have to, but it would make things easier. The boys would be together. We wouldn't have to coordinate drop-offs and pickups. We could actually try to be a family." "We barely know each other anymore, Damien. So we'll get to know each other again. I'm not asking you to sleep in my room or pretend we're a couple. I'm just asking you to consider making this easier on everyone by being in the same place." Clara was quiet for a long moment, watching the boys play. "I need to think about it." "Take all the time you need?" "What about schools? They're in different districts right now. We could transfer one of them, or both. Put them in the same school so they can be together. That's going to raise questions. People are going to want to know why identical twins are suddenly appearing together when they've been in separate schools for years. Let them ask. We tell them the truth. They were separated at birth due to complicated family circumstances and have recently been reunited. And when people push for more details, we tell them it's private family business and none of their concern." Clara rubbed her temples. "This is so complicated." "It doesn't have to be. We're making it complicated by overthinking it." "How can we not overthink it? This is our children's lives we're talking about. Their education, their stability, their emotional well-being. We can't just wing it and hope for the best." "I'm not suggesting we wing it. I'm suggesting we stop trying to plan for every possible contingency and just take it one day at a time. Make decisions as we need to make them. Adjust as we go." Before Clara could respond, both boys came running over. "Dad, can we get ice cream?" Noah asked. "Please?" Eli added. "There's a place right over there." Damien looked at Clara. "Ice cream okay with you?" "Sure. Why not? Let's add sugar to the chaos." They walked to the ice cream shop, both boys holding hands and chattering about what flavors they wanted. People kept doing double takes as they passed, startled by the identical children. A few asked if they were twins, and both boys eagerly confirmed that yes, they were, and they'd just found out about each other. Wasn't that amazing? In the ice cream shop, while the boys debated between chocolate and strawberry, a woman approached Clara. "Excuse me, but I couldn't help noticing your boys. They're absolutely adorable." "Thank you," Clara said automatically. "How old are they? They must be twins?" 6. "And yes, they are. It must be wonderful having them so close. My sister has twins and she says they're each other's best friends." Clara's smile became strained. "Yes, it's wonderful." The woman chatted for another minute before leaving. Clara looked like she might cry. "You okay?" Damien asked quietly. She has no idea. None of these people have any idea what it took to get here, what we sacrificed, what was stolen from us. They don't need to know. What matters is we're here now. They got their ice cream and found a table outside. The boys made a mess, as 6-year-olds do, getting ice cream on their faces and shirts, and somehow on the table, even though Damien wasn't sure how that was physically possible. "We need to tell them," Clara said suddenly. "Tell them what?" "The truth. About how they were separated, about your father, about why we weren't together. They're going to have questions eventually. Better they hear it from us than piece it together from overheard conversations." "They're 6 years old, Clara. That's a heavy conversation for 6-year-olds. "I know. But they deserve the truth. An age-appropriate version of it, at least. They deserve to know that what happened wasn't their fault, that we didn't choose to separate them, that we would have done things differently if we'd had the choice. Damien watched both boys trying to catch drips of melting ice cream with their tongues, completely oblivious to the serious conversation happening 2 feet away. Okay, we tell them, but together, we sit them down together and we do it as a team. Agreed. That evening, after dinner at Damien's penthouse, Clara had insisted on cooking, even though Damien had offered to order in, and the result had been edible if slightly overcooked chicken. They gathered both boys in the living room. We need to talk to you about something important, Damien started. Both boys immediately looked worried. Are we in trouble? Noah asked. No, nothing like that. We just want to explain some things about why you and Eli weren't together before now. Because Grandpa is mean, Eli said matter-of-factly. Mom told me. Clara winced. I said it was more complicated than that, baby. But Grandpa was mean, right? He's the one who made you give away Noah. Damien felt his jaw tighten. Yes, my father, your grandfather, did something very wrong. When you and Noah were born, your mom and I weren't together anymore. My father knew that your mom was pregnant, and he convinced her that she couldn't take care of both of you by herself. Why not? Noah asked. Because she didn't have a lot of money, and your grandfather told her that babies are expensive and hard to take care of alone. He told her that if she gave one of you to me, that baby would have a better life with more opportunities. But that's stupid, Noah said. We should have been together. You're absolutely right. It was stupid, and it was wrong. But your mom was young and scared, and she believed my father when he said this was the best choice. Clara took over, her voice thick with emotion. I want you both to understand something. The choice I made, to let Noah go to your dad, was the hardest thing I've ever done. And not a single day has gone by that I haven't regretted it. But I thought I was doing what was best for you. I thought I was giving you a chance at a better life. Did I have a better life? Noah asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Damien met Clara's eyes, seeing his own pain reflected there. You had a different life, Damien said carefully. You had me, and you had nice things, and you went to a good school, but you didn't have your brother, and you didn't have your mom, so I don't know if it was better. Just different. I don't like Grandpa, Eli announced. He sounds mean. He made a very bad choice, Damien agreed. And because of that choice, you won't be seeing him anymore. Neither of you will. Good, both boys said in unison. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with both boys asking questions that were sometimes easy to answer and sometimes impossible. Why didn't Mom and Dad stay together? Why did Grandpa think money was more important than family? Why couldn't they have just all lived together from the beginning? Because adults make mistakes sometimes, Clara said finally, tears streaming down her face. Big, terrible mistakes that hurt the people we love. And sometimes we can't fix those mistakes. We can only try to do better going forward. Are you going to make mistakes again? Noah asked. Probably. We're not perfect, but we're going to try really hard not to make the same mistakes. And you promise we get to stay together now? Eli asked. Me and Noah? We promise, Damien and Clara said together. That seemed to satisfy them. The boys went back to playing, the heavy conversation already fading into the background of their resilient 6-year-old minds. But Damien could see Clara trembling, barely holding it together. I need a minute, she whispered, standing abruptly and heading for the guest room. Damien waited a few beats, made sure the boys were occupied, then followed her. He found her sitting on the edge of the bed, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Hey, he said softly from the doorway. Can I come in? She nodded without looking up. Damien sat beside her, not touching, just being present. You did good in there. I traumatized them. I told them their mother gave one of them away because she was poor and scared. You told them the truth. An age-appropriate version of it. That's what we agreed on. The truth is ugly and horrible, and it's going to damage them. The truth is complicated and messy and human, and kids are resilient. They'll process it and ask more questions as they get older, and we'll answer those questions honestly. That's all we can do. Clara finally looked at him, her face blotchy and wet. How are you so calm about this? I'm not calm. I'm furious and hurt and wishing I could go back in time and make different choices. But falling apart won't help anyone, so I'm holding it together for them. Same as you. I don't feel like I'm holding it together. You're doing better than you think. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Clara spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll move in. Damien's heart skipped. What? To the penthouse. I'll move in. You're right. It'll be easier for everyone if we're all in the same place. The boys can be together. We can figure out the co-parenting thing without constantly coordinating schedules. It makes sense. Are you sure? I don't want you to feel pressured. Ito, I'm sure. I'm terrified and I think this might be a disaster, but I'm sure. Because watching them together tonight, seeing how happy they are, knowing that separating them again would break their hearts. She stopped, took a shaky breath. I can't do that to them. I can't be the reason they're apart anymore. Okay, then we'll make it work. I'll clear out one of the spare bedrooms for you. You can bring whatever furniture you want from your apartment. We'll make it feel like home. I don't have much furniture worth bringing. Most of my stuff is secondhand or falling apart. Then we'll get new stuff, whatever you need to feel comfortable. Clara laughed bitterly. This is insane. 2 days ago, I was living my quiet, predictable life. Now I'm moving into a penthouse with my ex-boyfriend and trying to figure out how to raise twins with a man I barely know anymore. We'll figure it out together. You keep saying that like it's easy. It's not easy, but it's simple. We put the boys first. We communicate. We give each other grace when we screw up. That's it. That's it, Clara repeated, like she was trying to convince herself. Okay. When do you want to do this? Whenever you're ready? Tomorrow? This weekend? Let's do it this weekend. Give me a few days to pack up the apartment and say goodbye to that chapter of my life. Sounds like a plan. Clara stood up, wiping her eyes. I should get back out there before the boys destroy your living room. It's already destroyed. They're 6-year-old twins. Destruction is their natural state. That got a genuine smile out of her. Fair point. They walked back to the living room to find both boys had built an elaborate fort out of couch cushions and were inside it, whispering and giggling about something. What are you two plotting in there? Damien called. 2 identical heads poked out. Nothing, they said unconvincingly. Uh-huh. Sure. The rest of the evening passed in surprising normalcy. They gave both boys baths separately, because putting twins in a bathtub together seemed like a recipe for a flood. They read them stories. They tucked them into bed. Noah in his room, Eli in the guest room, and listened to them call goodnight to each other through the walls. Finally, when the apartment was quiet and both children were asleep, Damien and Clara sat together in the living room with glasses of wine, exhausted. We survived day 1, Clara said. Barely. Tomorrow's going to be just as hard. Probably harder. And the day after that. Yep. Clara took a long sip of wine. Why does parenting involve so much wine? Because children are wonderful and also insane, and alcohol helps blur the edges of the insanity. Solid parenting philosophy. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. It felt surreal, sitting here with Clara like this was normal, like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. Can I ask you something? Clara said eventually. Sure. That first day in the hospital, when you saw me, what was going through your head? Damien thought back to that moment in the ER, when Clara had walked through the door and his entire world had tilted. Shock, mostly. Disbelief. I thought I was hallucinating. Then, when I realized you were real, I felt... He paused, trying to find the right words. Relief, anger, confusion, love. All of it at once. Love? I never stopped loving you, Clara. I told you that. 6 years wasn't long enough to get over you. She looked down at her wine glass. I loved you too. Love you. Present tense, I think. I'm not entirely sure anymore. Everything's so confused. That's okay. We've got time to figure it out. Do we, though? We're moving in together this weekend. We're raising kids together. That's not exactly taking things slow. We're co-parenting together, living in the same space for the kids' sake. Anything else, anything romantic, we take as slow as we need to. And if it never becomes romantic again, if we try to get to know each other and discover we're too different now, then we stay friends and co-parent successfully anyway. The kids don't need us to be a couple. They just need us to be present and stable and working together. Clara nodded slowly. Okay, I can work with that. Good. She finished her wine and stood up. I should get some sleep. Tomorrow I need to call my landlord and start packing. Need help? With packing? From a billionaire who probably hasn't packed his own suitcase in years? I packed my own suitcase last week, thank you very much. Where were you going? Tokyo. Business meetings, very boring. And how many assistants helped you pack? Damien grinned. Only 2. Clara laughed, and it was the most genuine sound he'd heard from her yet. Good night, Damien. Good night, Clara. He watched her disappear down the hallway, then sat alone in his living room for a long time, thinking about how drastically his life had changed in 48 hours. 2 days ago, he'd been a single father with 1 son and a successful business and a life that made sense. Now he had twins. Their mother was moving in. His father was cut out of his life, and nothing made sense anymore. But somehow, despite the chaos and confusion and pain, Damien felt more hopeful than he had in 6 years. Because his family, broken and unconventional and messy as it was finally together. And maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to make it work. The weekend came faster than either of them expected, bringing with it moving boxes, chaos, and the reality of what they'd agreed to. Damien had arranged for a moving company to help Clara pack up her apartment, but she'd insisted on doing most of it herself. Pride, he figured. She'd built that small life alone and wanted to dismantle it the same way. He showed up Saturday morning anyway with coffee and breakfast sandwiches. Clara answered the door in old jeans and a paint-stained t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. I told you I didn't need help. And I heard you. I brought coffee anyway. She tried to look annoyed but failed, accepting the cup gratefully. The boys? With Marcus. He's taking them to the aquarium. Figured we could use a few hours without 6-year-old commentary on everything we're doing. Your brother doesn't strike me as the babysitting type. He's not, but he's trying to be a better uncle. Apparently my complete life implosion inspired him to reevaluate his priorities. Clara snorted. Well, at least something good came from this disaster. The apartment looked smaller, with half its contents already boxed up. Damien could see Clara's life in these rooms, the medical textbooks stacked on shelves, the photos of Eli on every surface, the children's drawings taped to the fridge. 6 years of memories packed into cardboard boxes. You okay? He asked. I'm leaving the first place that ever felt like mine. The place where I raised my son, where I studied for boards, where I cried myself to sleep missing you and Noah. So no, not really okay, but I'll survive. They worked in silence for a while, packing dishes and books and the accumulated debris of Clara's life. Damien found himself studying the small details, the chipped mug that was obviously Eli's favorite, the framed photo of Clara at her medical school graduation with Eli in her arms, both of them beaming despite everything. You should be proud of yourself, he said suddenly. Clara looked up from the box she was taping. For what? For this. All of it. You finished medical school while raising a kid alone. That's incredible. It was necessary. I needed a career that could support us. Waitressing wasn't going to cut it. Still, not everyone could have done it. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. You chose to fight, to build something better. That takes strength. Clara's eyes got bright. Stop being nice to me. I'm barely holding it together as it is. Okay, you're terrible at packing boxes. Is that better? Much better, thank you. By early afternoon, they had everything packed and loaded into the moving truck. Clara took one last walk through the empty apartment, her footsteps echoing on the bare floors. 6 years, she said quietly. 6 years in this place. And I'm walking away in an afternoon. Damien stood in the doorway, giving her space. You're not walking away. You're moving forward. Feels the same from here. It's not. Walking away is running from something. Moving forward is running toward something better. She turned to look at him, and something in her expression shifted. When did you get so wise? I had 6 years to think about what I lost. Gives you perspective. They locked up the apartment and headed to the penthouse, where the movers were already unloading boxes. Damien had cleared out the spare bedroom next to Noah's room, though it was still twice the size of Clara's entire old apartment. This is ridiculous, Clara said, standing in the middle of what would be her new room. This is bigger than my living room and bedroom combined. You can decorate however you want. Make it feel like yours. I don't have enough stuff to fill this space. Then we'll get more stuff. Damien, I can't just... Yes, you can. You're living here now. This is your home too. Whatever you need to feel comfortable, we get it. No arguments. Clara looked like she wanted to argue anyway, but Marcus arrived with the boys before she could, both children running through the door with 1,000 things to say about the aquarium. The octopus was so cool, Eli shouted. And the sharks, Noah added. Uncle Marcus let us touch the stingrays. Marcus looked exhausted. They have more energy than should be legally allowed. I need a nap. And possibly therapy. Welcome to parenting, Damien said, clapping him on the shoulder. How do you do this every day? Coffee. Lots of coffee. The boys discovered Clara's boxes and immediately wanted to help unpack, which meant everything took 3 times longer but involved significantly more laughter. They found Eli's stuffed animals and insisted on introducing each one to Noah's collection. They found books and demanded to know if they were good stories. They found a photo album and spent 20 minutes looking at pictures of Eli as a baby. Mom, why don't we have pictures of Noah as a baby? Eli asked. Clara's face went carefully neutral. Because Noah was with your dad, remember? I didn't have pictures of him. But we're twins. Don't we look the same? Exactly the same, Damien confirmed, pulling out his phone and scrolling through old photos. Here, look. This is Noah, when he was about 6 months old. Both boys crowded around the phone, studying the picture intently. Then Eli's eyes went wide. That looks just like me. Mom, do you have my baby pictures? Clara retrieved a photo album from one of the boxes, and they spent the next hour comparing pictures, finding identical expressions and poses, despite being in completely different places. Baby Noah in an expensive nursery. Baby Eli in Clara's small apartment. Same faces, different worlds. It's weird, Noah said finally. Looking at pictures and not knowing which one is me. Welcome to being an identical twin, Damien said. Your Uncle Marcus and I used to switch places in school all the time. You have a twin too? Both boys looked shocked. Yep, runs in families sometimes. Is Uncle Marcus exactly like you? Personality-wise? No, he's much more annoying. I heard that, Marcus called from the kitchen where he was raiding Damien's fridge. The unpacking continued into the evening. They ordered pizza for dinner, 2 large pizzas that the boys demolished with impressive efficiency. Then Clara supervised bath time, while Damien handled bedtime stories, reading to both boys in Noah's room since they refused to be separated. Can Eli just sleep in here with me? Noah asked. We have that extra bed from when Tyler has sleepovers. Damien looked at Clara, who'd appeared in the doorway. She looked uncertain. It's up to your mom, Damien said. Please, Mom? Eli added his pleading to Noah's. We've been apart forever. We should get to be together now. It's a school night, Clara said, but her resolve was clearly crumbling. We'll go to sleep right away, both boys promised in unison. Somehow I doubt that, but fine. You can share a room tonight, but if I hear giggling and playing at midnight, you're both going back to separate rooms. Deal? Deal. 20 minutes later, both boys were tucked into their respective beds in Noah's room, still talking quietly to each other. Damien and Clara stood in the hallway, listening. They're never going to sleep, Clara said. Probably not, but let them have tonight. They'll crash eventually. They retreated to the living room, both exhausted from the day's physical and emotional labor. Damien poured them each a glass of wine, and they collapsed onto the couch. So this is our life now, Clara said. Living together, raising twins, pretending we know what we're doing. Pretty much. It's terrifying. Yeah. What if we screw this up? What if we can't make it work and the boys end up more damaged than they already are? Damien turned to look at her. Then we'll deal with it. We'll get them therapy. We'll apologize when we mess up. We'll do better the next time. That's all any parent can do. That's not very reassuring. It's realistic. Clara, there's no handbook for this. No guide on how to parent identical twins who were separated at birth and reunited at 6. We're making it up as we go and hoping we don't traumatize them too badly in the process. You're supposed to tell me it'll all work out fine. It won't all work out fine. Some days are going to be disasters. Some days we're going to want to quit. Some days the boys are going to hate us for the choices we've made. But we keep showing up anyway. That's what makes us their parents. Claire was quiet for a long moment. I really did miss you, you know, these past 6 years. I missed having someone to share this with, someone who understood what it felt like to love them this much. I missed you too, every single day. Do you think... She stopped, bit her lip. Do you think we could try? Not just as co-parents, but as us? Eventually? Damien's heart kicked against his ribs. I'd like that. If you're ready. I'm not ready, but I don't think I'll ever feel ready. Too much has happened. Too much time has passed. We're different people now. So we get to know these different people. See if they fit together the way the old versions did. And if they don't, then we tried, but I have a feeling we will. Clara smiled, and it was the first real unguarded smile he'd seen from her since the hospital. You're awfully confident for someone whose life just got turned upside down. I'm not confident. I'm hopeful. There's a difference. They sat together in comfortable silence until sounds of giggling erupted from Noah's room. Both of them sighed. I'll go, Clara said, standing up. No, let me. You've been dealing with bedtime rebellion for 6 years. My turn. Damien found both boys sitting up in their beds, flashlights out, clearly in the middle of planning something. What did we say about going to sleep? He asked, trying to sound stern. We were sleeping, Noah claimed. We just woke up for a second. Uh-huh. And the flashlights? In case we needed to see in the dark, Eli supplied helpfully. Right. Well, the dark is for sleeping, not for seeing, so flashlights off, eyes closed, no more talking. But Dad, oh! No buts. Sleep. Now. Or tomorrow there's no aquarium trip with Mom. That got their attention. Both boys immediately lay down and closed their eyes with exaggerated firmness. Damien bit back a smile. Good night, boys. Night, Dad, they chorused. He was almost out the door when Noah's small voice stopped him. Dad, are we going to be okay? All of us together like this? Damien turned back. In the dim light from the hallway, he could see both boys watching him with identical expressions of worry that 6-year-olds shouldn't have to wear. Yeah, buddy, we're going to be okay. It might be messy and complicated and sometimes hard, but we'll be okay. Because we're together now, all 4 of us, and that's what matters. Do you promise? Damien thought about all the promises that had been broken over the past 6 years, all the lies and manipulations, all the ways the adults in their lives had failed them. He could make another promise that might not hold, or he could tell them the truth. I promise we'll do our best. That's all anyone can promise. We'll make mistakes, and we'll fix them. We'll have bad days and good days, but we'll keep showing up for each other. How's that sound? Both boys considered this seriously. Then Noah nodded. Okay, that's good enough. Good enough for me too, Eli agreed. Then sleep. For real this time. Damien returned to the living room to find Clara standing at the window, looking out at the city lights. They okay? She asked without turning. They're worried about us, about whether we can make this work. Join the club. I told them we'd do our best. That's all we can promise. Clara finally turned to face him. Is it though? Is our best going to be enough? What if... Stop catastrophizing. We're 1 day into this. 1 day. Give it time. I'm not good at giving things time. I'm good at planning and controlling and making sure nothing goes wrong. How's that been working out for you? She laughed despite herself. Point taken. Look, I know this is scary. I know you've been alone for 6 years and trusting someone else with your kid, with our kids, is terrifying, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and I need you to trust that. I want to. I really do. But trusting people hasn't worked out well for me historically. I'm not people. I'm the guy who loved you 6 years ago and never stopped. I'm the father of your children. I'm the person who wants this to work just as much as you do, maybe more. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Why are you being so patient with me? Because you deserve patience and understanding and time to heal from everything my father did to you, to us. I don't know how to do this, how to let someone in again. Then let me help you figure it out. We'll take it slow. We'll talk when things get hard. We'll give each other space when we need it, but we do it together. Together, Clara repeated, like she was testing how the word felt. Okay, together. The weeks that followed were an exercise in organized chaos. They enrolled both boys in the same school, Pinewood Elementary, which had better resources and smaller class sizes. The teachers were confused but accommodating when identical twins suddenly appeared in first grade. But the boys handled it beautifully, using their matching faces to their advantage at every opportunity. Clara started back at the hospital, working modified shifts so she'd be home more. Damien restructured his schedule to be present for school drop-offs and pickups. They traded off bedtimes and homework help in dealing with twin-related mischief, which turned out to be significantly more complicated than single-child mischief. They also had to deal with the questions. So many questions. Neighbors wanted to know where the second child had come from. School parents wanted the whole story. Well-meaning friends asked invasive things about how long Clara and Damien had been back together, and wasn't it wonderful that they'd worked things out? They developed a script. The boys had been separated due to complicated family circumstances and had recently been reunited. Yes, they were thrilled. Yes, the boys were adjusting well. No, they didn't want to discuss the details. Most people accepted this. Some didn't. Richard Cross was in the second category. He showed up at Damien's office 3 weeks after Clara moved in, bypassing security with the arrogance of a man who'd never been told no. "We need to talk," he announced, striding into Damien's corner office like he owned it. Damien didn't look up from his laptop. "No, we don't. I told you to stay away from my family. I'm your father, I have a right." "You have no rights. Not anymore. You lost those when you separated my children and lied to me for 6 years. I did what was necessary to protect your future. You did what was convenient to protect your ego. You couldn't stand that I'd fallen for someone who didn't come from money, so you destroyed it. You're not getting another chance." Richard's face flushed with anger. "That woman is manipulating you. Can't you see that? She gave up one child, and now she's wormed her way into your life to get access to your money. Clara has her own money, her own career. She doesn't need mine. Everyone needs money, Damien, and now she's living in your penthouse, raising both children, positioning herself perfectly to take you for everything when this inevitably falls apart. Get out. I'm trying to help you. Get out!" Damien stood, his voice echoing in the office. "Get out of my building. Get out of my life. You're done. If you come near me, near Clara, near my sons, I will destroy you. I will expose every dirty secret, every shady business deal, every lie you've ever told. I will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. Do you understand me?" Richard looked at his son like he was seeing a stranger. "You've changed." "Yeah, I have. I'm not your puppet anymore. I'm not the dutiful son who does whatever you say to keep the peace. I'm a father who will do anything to protect his children from people who hurt them, even if that person is you. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is not standing up to you 6 years ago. Now get out before I have security remove you." Richard left without another word. Damien sank back into his chair, shaking with adrenaline and anger. His phone buzzed. "Clara, everything okay? Your assistant texted that your father showed up. It's handled. He's gone." "For good?" "For good." That evening, Damien came home to find Clara in the kitchen, attempting to make dinner while both boys did homework at the counter. It was domestic and chaotic and nothing like the quiet, controlled life he'd had before. It was perfect. "Dad, I don't understand this math problem," Noah announced. "Mom already explained it twice," Eli added, "but we still don't get it." Damien set down his briefcase and rolled up his sleeves. "All right, let's see what we're working with here." Clara shot him a grateful look. "I'm better with medical emergencies than with first-grade math, apparently. We all have our strengths." They worked through homework together, Damien explaining fractions with crackers while Clara finished cooking. Then they ate dinner as a family, both boys talking over each other about their day, Clara and Damien exchanging amused glances over their heads. After the boys were in bed, they'd officially moved Eli into Noah's room permanently since separating them at night had proven impossible. Clara and Damien cleaned up the kitchen together. "Your father came to see you today," Clara said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah, I told him to stay away, permanently." "How did he take it?" "About as well as you'd expect. Lots of threats and accusations. Claims you're manipulating me for money." Clara flinched. "Maybe he's right. Maybe I am taking advantage." "Stop. You're not. You've never asked me for anything. You work full-time. You pay for half of everything even though I've told you it's not necessary. If anything, I'm the one who should be worried about taking advantage." "How do you figure?" "I got 6 years with Noah that you didn't get. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I have the bigger apartment, the better resources, all the advantages. What do you have?" "I have Eli, and my career, and my independence." "Exactly. You don't need me, Clara. You're choosing to be here. That's the difference." She was quiet for a moment, drying dishes. "I do need you, though. Maybe not financially, but in other ways. I need someone to share this with. Someone who understands how hard it is and how wonderful it is and how terrifying it is all at the same time. I need that too. So what does that make us? Damien set down the dish he was washing and turned to face her. I don't know. Parents, partners, friends, maybe eventually something more. Does it have to have a label right now? I guess not. I want to know where we stand. We stand together, raising our kids, building something new out of broken pieces, taking it one day at a time. Is that enough? Clara looked at him for a long moment, and he could see her struggling with trust, with fear, with the weight of everything they'd been through. Finally, she nodded. Yeah, it's enough. 3 months into their new arrangement, Clara's mother called. Clara hadn't spoken to her in years. They'd had a falling out when Clara got pregnant, and her mother had called her irresponsible and stupid. But somehow she'd tracked down Clara's new number. I heard you're living with some rich man, her mother said without preamble. Playing house with his money while he plays father to your bastard? Clara went pale. Damien, who was close enough to hear the venom in the woman's voice, gently took the phone from Clara's hand. This is Damien Cross. I'm the father of Clara's children, both of them. And if you ever speak to her or about her like that again, you'll be hearing from my lawyers. She doesn't need your judgment or your toxic presence in her life. Lose this number. He ended the call and blocked the number before handing the phone back to Clara, who was staring at him with wide eyes. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Nobody talks to you like that. Nobody. She's my mother. She's a bully who abandoned you when you needed her most. You don't owe her anything. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. For what? For defending me. For believing I deserve better. For everything. Damien pulled her into a hug, and she collapsed against him, crying for the relationship with her mother she'd never had, for the support she'd needed and never received. He held her until the tears stopped, until her breathing evened out, until she pulled back and wiped her eyes. Sorry, she said. I don't usually fall apart like that. You're allowed to fall apart sometimes. That's what I'm here for. To catch me when I fall? Something like that. She looked up at him, and something shifted in her expression. Before Damien could process what was happening, Clara pushed up on her toes and kissed him. It was soft and tentative and tasted like salt from her tears, and it was the best kiss of Damien's entire life. When she pulled back, she looked almost surprised at herself. Was that okay? More than okay. Good. Because I've been wanting to do that for weeks, and I needed you to know that I'm not just here for the boys, that I want this, us, whatever this becomes. Clara, I know we said we'd take it slow, and we can still take it slow, but I needed you to know that I'm in. I'm all in. I choose this. I choose you. Damien kissed her again, properly this time, pouring 6 years of longing and loss and hope into it. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathless. I choose you too, he said. I've been choosing you for 6 years. I'm not stopping now. They took it slow after that, but it was a different kind of slow. The kind where you know where you're heading, but you savor the journey. They had date nights after the boys went to bed, cooking together, watching movies, talking about everything and nothing. They had family outings on weekends, parks and museums and ice cream shops where people did double takes at the identical boys. They built routines and inside jokes and a life that felt real instead of forced. 6 months after Clara moved in, Damien took all 3 of them, Clara, Noah, and Eli, on a trip to a small coastal town 3 hours north of Seattle. They rented a cottage on the beach, spent days building sandcastles and collecting shells, and evenings watching the sunset while the boys ran along the water's edge. On the last evening, after the boys had fallen asleep exhausted from a full day of beach activities, Damien and Clara sat on the porch watching the stars. I want to ask you something, Damien said. Okay. And you can say no. There's no pressure. I need you to know where my head's at. Clara turned to look at him, curious. You're making me nervous. Don't be nervous. Damien took a breath. I want us to be a real family. Not just co-parents living together, but a real family. I want to marry you, Clara. I want to adopt Eli officially and have you adopt Noah officially and make this legal and permanent and real. Clara's eyes went wide. Damien! I know it's only been 6 months. I know we're still figuring things out. But I also know that I love you. I've always loved you. And I love those boys in there like they're the most important things in the world because they are. And I don't want to waste any more time pretending this is temporary when we both know it's not. You want to marry me, Clara repeated, like she was testing how the words sounded. Yeah, I do, but only if it's what you want too. I'm not trying to pressure you or... Yes. Damien stopped mid-sentence. What? Yes. I'll marry you. I want this to be real and permanent and legal. I want us to be a family. I want all of it. Yeah? Yeah? Clara laughed, tears streaming down her face. I can't believe I'm saying yes to someone I was terrified to even see 6 months ago. But yeah, let's do this. Let's be a family. Damien pulled a small box from his pocket. He'd been carrying it for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Inside was a simple diamond ring, nothing ostentatious, just elegant and classic. I had this made, he said, slipping it onto her finger. I wanted something that was just yours. Not flashy or expensive looking, just beautiful. Like you. Clara stared at the ring, then at Damien, then started laughing and crying at the same time. We're insane, you know that, right? We're completely insane. Probably. But we're insane together. Together, Clara agreed and kissed him. They told the boys the next morning over breakfast. Both children reacted with the enthusiasm of 6-year-olds who didn't fully understand marriage but knew it meant their family was staying together. Does this mean Mom is staying forever? Eli asked. Forever and ever, Clara confirmed. And we all get to be together? All the time, Noah added. All the time, Damien agreed. Cool, both boys shouted, and went back to their pancakes like this was the most normal thing in the world. The wedding happened 3 months later in the same coastal town where Damien had proposed. It was small and private. Just Marcus as best man, a friend of Clara's from medical school as maid of honor, and the boys as ring bearers who took their job very seriously. Clara wore a simple ivory dress. Damien wore a suit. Both boys wore matching miniature suits and couldn't stop giggling at how fancy they looked. The ceremony was short and emotional. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, both boys shouted, "No!" so loudly that everyone laughed. When Damien and Clara exchanged vows, promising to love and support each other, to parent their children together, to build a life based on honesty and trust, there wasn't a dry eye in the small gathering. And when the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, both boys ran forward and wrapped their arms around their parents' legs, creating the world's most chaotic but perfect family hug. The reception was held at the cottage with catered food and a cake that the boys had helped design, complete with dinosaurs because, of course, it had dinosaurs. They danced on the beach, Clara's dress getting sandy and wet around the edges, both boys taking turns stepping on their parents' feet while trying to dance. That night, after the celebration ended and the boys fell asleep in their shared room, Damien and Clara sat on the porch watching the stars. We did it, Clara said softly. We actually did it. We did. 6 months ago, I thought my life was ruined. I thought seeing you again was going to destroy the careful balance I'd built. And instead, she gestured around them. Instead, this. Instead, we got our family back. We got better than that. We got a second chance. How many people get second chances like this? Not many. Clara leaned her head on Damien's shoulder. I'm glad it was you. I'm glad that after everything we went through, all the pain and lies and separation, it was still you. It was always you. It was always you too. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the waves and the distant sound of their son sleeping safely inside. Damien thought about his father, about Rebecca, about all the people who'd tried to keep them apart. They'd failed. Love, real, messy, complicated love, had won anyway. What are you thinking about? Clara asked. How lucky I am. How close I came to never finding you again. How different our lives would be if Noah hadn't broken his arm that day. Don't, Clara said. Don't think about what almost happened. Think about what did happen. We found each other. We found both our sons. We built something real out of broken pieces. You're right. I usually am, Clara said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. 2 years later, Clara was in the kitchen making breakfast when both boys ran in, shouting about the first snowfall of the season. They were 8 now, taller and louder, and somehow even more identical than before. They'd developed their own language, their own jokes, their own way of communicating that sometimes didn't even require words. "Can we build a snowman?" Noah asked. "After school," Claire said. "You've got to eat breakfast first." "But, Mom—" "No buts. Breakfast, school, then snow. That's the deal." Both boys grumbled but complied, sitting at the counter and digging into their cereal. Damien emerged from his office where he'd been on an early call with Tokyo and kissed Clara good morning. "Snow day?" he asked. "After school. I promised them." "Good. I'll wrap up early and help." This was their life now. Normal chaos. School and work and homework and dinner as a family. Bedtime routines and weekend adventures and arguments about vegetables. It was messy and imperfect and sometimes exhausting. It was everything they'd almost lost and fought so hard to keep. That evening, as promised, they all bundled up and went outside to build a snowman. The boys worked together with the efficiency of people who'd been completing each other's thoughts for 8 years, while Clara and Damien added finishing touches. "We need a carrot for the nose," Eli shouted. "I'll get it." Noah ran toward the building. Clara watched them go, shaking her head. "They're growing up so fast." "Too fast," Damien agreed. "Do you think they'll remember, when they're older, how they started, the separation?" "Probably. But I think they'll remember this more, the building back together, the family we became." Clara smiled. "I hope so." When both boys returned with not just a carrot but an entire arsenal of snowman accessories, the family spent another hour perfecting their creation. By the time they went inside, everyone was cold and wet and happy. Later, after hot chocolate and baths and the usual bedtime routine, Damien found Clara in their bedroom, looking at the photos on her nightstand. One from their wedding, one of all 4 of them at the beach. One of the boys on their first day at their new school, standing with their arms around each other. "What are you thinking about?" Damien asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "How grateful I am. For all of this? For second chances. For you never giving up on finding me. I couldn't give up on you. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. Even with all the complications, all the pain we went through. Especially with all of that, because it taught us what matters. It taught us to fight for what we love. And it gave us these 2 incredible kids who are definitely never going to let us have a quiet moment ever again." Clara laughed. "Probably not." She turned in his arms and looked up at him. "I love you. I don't say it enough, but I do. I love you for fighting for us, for believing we could make this work when I was too scared to try, for being the partner and father I needed even when I didn't know how to ask for it. I love you too, every complicated, messy, beautiful part of this." They stood there in their bedroom, in the life they'd built together, listening to their sons whisper and giggle in the room next door, even though they were supposed to be sleeping. This was family. Not perfect, not what they'd planned, but real and hard-won and worth every struggle. Damien thought about the scared 26-year-old he'd been, falling for a waitress his father would never approve of. He thought about Clara at 23, pregnant and alone, making an impossible choice. He thought about 6 years of separation, of pain, of believing they'd lost everything. And then he thought about now. About second chances and forgiveness and the family they'd fought so hard to build. Sometimes the best things in life weren't the things that came easy. Sometimes they were the things you had to fight for, piece back together, rebuild from broken fragments. Sometimes love wasn't about perfect timing or ideal circumstances. Sometimes it was just about showing up, day after day, and choosing each other despite everything. And that, Damien thought as he held his wife close and listened to his son's laugh in the next room, was more than enough. It was everything.